From an early age, Letitia knew exactly what she wanted. She wasn't there just to work the hours, get paid, and go home. Letitia dreamed big. She dreamed of professional growth, of being recognized for her work, of carving out her own niche. Determined, she stood out among her colleagues. Always focused, committed, with that slight smile on her face of someone who knows where she wants to go. Amidst the hustle and bustle of the office, she was like a shining beacon. But not all brilliance goes unnoticed. As she immersed herself in spreadsheets, reports, and goals, other eyes watched her eyes that saw not effort but threat. Whispers echoed amid the clinking of glasses at the water cooler. She works like she owns the company. One murmured. I want to see how far this goes. The other replied, a mocking smile at the corner of her mouth. Letitia didn't hear it, but she felt it. The tension, the veiled resistance, the envy disguised as a joke. Still, she remained steadfast until one day, with the report finished ahead of schedule, she went to her boss's office. Sylvia, an elegant woman, always impeccable, but with a cold gaze that seemed to weigh everything and everyone. Letitia handed her the document confidently. I finished the report ahead of schedule, she said professionally. Sylvia didn't even look up. She simply replied dryly, you're efficient, but remember your place. In that instant, Letitia understood. There was an invisible line there, and she was dangerously close to crossing it. But what she didn't expect was that life had even more challenging plans. Days later, alone in the company bathroom, Letitia hunched over the sink, trying to breathe. The nausea was just the beginning. In her trembling hand, the positive pregnancy test confirmed what she already suspected. She was pregnant, and more than ever, fear took over. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of being discarded. Fear of seeing all her efforts crumble in silence. In the break room between breaks, she showed the test to the only colleague she trusted. Are you going to tell Sylvia? Her friend asked quietly. Letitia hesitated. She took a deep breath. I have to, it's the right thing to do. But, in that moment, she didn't know if she was about to change her own story or be erased from it. Letitia knew this moment would come. Sitting at her boss's desk, hands in her lap, her nervousness almost betrayed her voice. She looked into Sylvia's eyes and with gentle firmness said what needed to be said. I am pregnant, but I promise to continue to perform as well as I did. For a moment, silence filled the room. Sylvia kept a smile on her face, but it was the kind of smile that didn't touch her eyes. Cold, calculated. She stood up slowly, walked around the desk and placed her hand on Letitia's shoulder. Congratulations, Letitia. Take good care of yourself in this. So delicate moment. Her voice was soft, the words rehearsed, but Letitia felt it there. Behind the gesture of support was something that wasn't spoken aloud. It was a disguised goodbye, and she was right. Days later, the blow came silently. In HR, Letitia received the letter, unfair dismissal. No meeting, no explanation, just a cold stamped piece of paper, handed to her by hands that avoided eye contact. She read it silently, shock, disbelief, no justification, no right of reply, she thought. It was as if time stood still for a few seconds. That same afternoon, Letitia walked out the company door with a box in her hands. Inside, a piece of her history, the mug she used every day, her mother's picture frame, the papers with notes of ideas that would never be presented again. Outside, the rain began to fall, slowly soaking her clothes and all that remained of her dignity. I was discarded as if it were a mistake. Just because I decided to be a mother. From above, watching from the top floor window, Sylvia watched the scene. Arms crossed, expression impassive, no remorse, no emotion. He just murmured, as if laying down a cruel rule. No one gets pregnant under my watch. The pain didn't paralyze Letitia, she cried. Yes, she was afraid. She doubted herself, but she didn't allow herself to be defeated. In the small room that now housed her dreams and a new life, she went back to studying. Her belly was already slightly visible. Her nights were short and her mornings were long, but her mind was firm. Books on entrepreneurship, marketing, and finance filled the table between sips of cold coffee and a slight contraction. Letitia continued, pencil between her fingers, eyes alert. I couldn't let myself be defeated, she thought. If no one is going to give me space, I'll build my own. And that's how her idea was born. Simple, sweet, with the taste of a new beginning in her kitchen. She began making sweets. Recipes she had learned from her mother. Each jar was carefully packaged, each label lovingly applied. One bag at a time, one customer at a time. In the background, the baby's stroller cradled her greatest motivation. I turned pain into motivation. I started with what I knew how to do, sweets, and when she least expected it. Life, once again, surprised her. During an online meeting, Letitia received the call that would change everything. On one side of the screen, an experienced startup investor. On the other, she's surprised, emotional but ready. "You have talent and vision. We'll help you grow," the mentor said with a sincere smile. Letitia could hardly believe it. "Really, I thank you. I won't disappoint." And she didn't. 2 years later, there she was, more mature, stronger, and with a real company, now in a small but elegant office of her own, with 2 investors at the table and confidence in her hands. Letitia signed her new contract. Letitia A. Mendez, the signature read. This time with pride. Caption at the top: 2 years later, my business grew, and it grew fast. It was an ordinary late afternoon, sitting on a playground bench while her son played, that life decided to deliver another message. She picked up her cell phone, opened a news article, and read it calmly. Cosmetics company facing crisis. For sale after failed management. Her eyes fixed on the name of her old company. That company, Sylvia's. Letitia took a deep breath. A slight smile played at the corner of her mouth, and she thought silently, Sylvia's company. Irony? No. Just justice with a taste of victory. Letitia's eyes were no longer the same. Before, there had been fear, doubt, insecurity. Now, only firmness, confidence, strength. With her son in her arms and her heart serene, she looked at the screen with a slight smile. She thought about everything she had faced and whispered to herself, as if taking the first step into a new world. The time has come. The journey there wasn't easy, but Letitia had learned. True power doesn't shout. It moves silently in a sophisticated meeting room. The faces were new, but her presence, though discreet, dominated the room. She didn't say a word. Her lawyers spoke for her, and no one knew who was behind that irresistible offer. A cold corporate name hid the woman who was returning with purpose. I used the name of a holding company, she thought. No one needed to know yet. Across the table, the lawyers announced, "Our client is interested in acquiring 100% of the shares." Days later, in the same place where she had been belittled so many times, her former boss was now signing papers with visibly tired hands. Sylvia's gaze was still proud, but filled with weariness. She signed the contract without imagining who was behind it. "I hope the new owner knows how to maintain my legacy, ... she murmured. Meanwhile, in a new office, with her brand emblazoned on the wall, Letitia signed the final document. It was the last step. The pen glided firmly. Now, it was mine. Not for revenge, but for justice. For everything they said she couldn't achieve. In the old company's headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. Employees gathered, glances exchanged, whispers echoing through the hallways. The door opened slowly, and there she was, Letitia, elegant, confident. Whole. The spokesperson stood and solemnly announced, "I present the new owner of the company." She walked to the center of the room. She looked at everyone calmly and said, with a slight smile, "Good afternoon, ... remember me." The silence didn't last long. It only took a second after the formal introduction for the room to be filled with murmurs, shocked expressions, and wide eyes. Employees looked at each other, trying to understand what they were witnessing. One whispered, almost in disbelief, "It's her. The pregnant woman who was fired?" The other, open-mouthed, "How did that happen?" The answer was still to come, but the scene spoke for itself. It was then that the door opened once more, belatedly, as if carrying their own end without knowing it. Sylvia entered the room with a briefcase in her arms. She walked with the same posture as always, ... until she saw who was at the front of the room. Her eyes froze. The color drained from her face. She stopped in her tracks. "No, ... Is it okay?" she whispered weakly. Letitia stared at her. No hatred, no provocation, just firmness. "Hold on." She took a step forward, breathed calmly, ... and then said, "For all to hear, Sylvia, your time is up. You are officially dismissed." Sylvia's silence filled the room. Everyone stared, paralyzed. No one dared say anything. It was as if time had stopped and finally put everything in its rightful place. Hours later, at the end of that same day, the roles had completely reversed. Now it was Sylvia who walked out the company door, head down, carrying a cardboard box containing her belongings. The gold pen, the antique photo frame, the red folder, ... everything inside. Everything reduced to a memory. The scene was familiar. It was the same as years ago, only now with the roles reversed. Caption: "Justice may take time, but it arrives." And as she left, Letitia took her place. At the head of the team, standing firm with a sparkle in his eyes, he spoke not as a boss but as a leader. "From now on, this company has a new culture and a new heart." Letitia knew that taking command was just the beginning, restructuring. What had been corrupted was the real challenge. In her new office, surrounded by directors and lawyers, she examined reports and files with a watchful eye. There no detail would go unnoticed. A list on the table contained names and many had already been crossed off. Toxic bosses, harassers, manipulators. Will all be removed, she declared firmly. There was no longer room for abuse, nor for fear disguised as leadership. Caption: the culture of fear was dying there. But Letitia wanted more than cleaning. She wanted reconstruction. Months later, a new area emerged within the company, colorful, modern, full of toys, cribs, and smiles. It was the corporate daycare there. Mothers could work with peace of mind. Knowing their children were well cared for close to them, she watched the scene with a slight smile on her face, her heart warming. An employee approached, her eyes welling up. "Thank you. This changes everything for me." Letitia simply nodded. She knew what that meant. She knew because she had experienced it firsthand. Caption: no one would lose their job because they were a mother again. In the conference room, a new era was also dawning. Letitia presented the company's new values to the entire team. On the screen, the clear and objective words: equality, respect, results. And with a firm voice, she added, "Here, competence has no gender, color, or marital status." The old model was gone. A new culture was born. Fair, efficient, humane. Sometime later, Letitia was in her new office, spacious, bright, with a generous view of the city. In her lap, her now older son played with her fingers while they both watched the world outside in the window. The reflection of the two of them, mother and son, blended against the landscape. Serenely, Letitia thought. They called me weak, just because I chose to be a mother. But in that moment, there was no pain, only the awareness of who she had become. The camera slowly zooms in. Close up on Letitia's eyes, steady, alive, unstoppable. And then, last sentence echoes in her mind. Clear, powerful. They forgot who I was. What started as a silent tragedy was now stamped on whole pages. Newspapers, websites, social networks. There she was. In bottles, letters, former pregnancy-fired employee is now CEO of the company that dismissed it. The headline rolled the world, and at that moment, Letitia understood. Her story wasn't just hers. It belonged to all who were silent, to all who were discarded, to all who were discarded, to all who, like her, refused to accept the end. Caption: my story was no longer just mine. The news went fast. It has come to many places. Even the silent room of a dark apartment where Sylvia now spent her days alone, without the haughty posture, without the high heels, without the empire that built under fear, with a tablet in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. She stared at the pale, still matter. She managed, he murmured. Almost like anyone who finally understands, but Letitia didn't look back. The focus now was what was coming. Days later, an elegant envelope came to your table, a special invitation, one of the largest female leadership events in the country. Letitia would not be audience nor executing of others' ideas. She would be the main speaker. This time, I was not called to obey. I was called to inspire. On the big day, the auditorium was full. Lights on the stage, attentive. Looks. Letitia rose with elegance and serenity. His name echoed in the space, followed by a round of applause that seemed to have no end. She smiled, took a deep breath, and said, "They took me everything, but my strength." And that is what she shared. As you get up after the fall, how pain into motor, how to win the top without giving up who you are. The applause standing once more. But Letitia knew that the most important thing was far from the lights. On the way out of the stage, between hugs and compliments, she crossed her eyes with a young woman in the audience. Pregnant, simple uniform, eyes full of doubt, but also of hope. The girl approached, hesitant, and he said, with a low voice as one who carries a painful secret, "No. One hires me. They say pregnant only gives expense." Letitia stopped. He looked into her eyes and he smiled with empathy. Not as CEO, but as someone who has been exactly there. She knew. The story resumed now in another woman. Letitia looked at that pregnant young woman as who looks at her own. Without saying much, he took a personal card from his pocket and extended it with a welcoming smile. "You just need one chance." I needed it too. In that simple gesture, he carried something immense, because now she was the one who opened the doors, who wrote the finals and the restarts. Now, I was the one who opened the doors. The following days were reconstruction, but also of celebration at a common moment. Letitia walked through the corridors of the company next to her son, hand in hand. The boy looked at everything with curiosity, delighted with the environments that looked too big for his small stature. With the naturalness of those who feel proud, he asked, "Mom, is this company yours?" She smiled. You didn't have to think. It's ours. And it was really, because Letitia never built anything alone. Each step was taken by her. But in the name of many, that same day he stopped before a door. In the past, it was the room of Sylvia, a symbol of fear, coldness, oppression, now redecorated modern. Welcoming, the name on the plate had changed. It was hers. The place where they dropped me, turned my throne from the company's walls. New values, gained space, frames, phrases, inspiring images. But one in particular drew attention. Letitia stopped in front of a newly installed mural at the top. A simple but powerful phrase, "Lead with justice, always." She was reflected in the wall, and in that reflection there was everything he has achieved and everything he stopped losing. And then, at the end of the day, Letitia climbed to the terrace of the building. He took his son with her. The sky died by sunset. The city before them. Silence, peace, and purpose. There facing the horizon. She knew this was not revenge. Never has been. She didn't want to return the pain. I wanted to break the cycle, create something new, firm, fair, human. Revenge. No. Justice. And now, it's me who chooses the rules. Now, in another woman,